So guys, going straight here back in the video. And today's video is a bit different because this is ranking every villain in Total Drama. So what I consider a main villain is a character who's been a villain in more than one episode. And the main villain or villains of that season, Bowie and Julia, and who actually made a massive impact. I'm looking how they were written, how much I liked the character, and explaining why I put them here. All this is my opinion. This is not ranking. Well, it kind of is how much I like the character, but also how I feel as a villain. This might be a bit controversial. Some people might be annoyed at how I would rank these characters, but that's just my opinion. So let's begin. So the first person is Alejandro, and I think it's obvious Alejandro is an S tier villain. I've said this before, I believe Alejandro's the best villain in Total Drama. The fact that he was written so well, like Alejandro was basically imagine Heather and Justin into one character. That is basically Alejandro. So they took the idea for Justin for his looks and action, manipulating the ladies, and then Heather, the manipulative side, how smart she is. Because I wouldn't say Justin's as smart as Heather Alejandro, which I would. For Alejandro, I definitely would say the reason why I'd say he's the best villain is he knows the game. Like, it's never outside of Alejandro what's a short memory, but he does seem to know that he's better villain than Heather when he says, compared to me, Heather's a saint. So I think Alejandro has some awareness of what's actually happened on the show before. And he caused a lot of eliminations. Like, he made Harold quit the game. He made Bridget eliminated. He got Lashana eliminated. And he also got DJ eliminated. So we got 4 out of the 6 members of Team Victory eliminated. I'm not counting Lindsay or Ezekiel because that had nothing to do with Alejandro. Ezekiel lost the stick by himself. That had nothing to do with Alejandro. And Lindsay lost due to bad luck. And the thing is, I think we have to talk about also the fact that there's 4 people. And he also got out Noah. Alejandro got Noah eliminated, which I really liked. Noah's one of my favorite characters, but I really enjoyed the fact how he got rid of Noah. I thought as an actual villain, that was a huge accomplishment for Alejandro as an actual villain, because it was a huge accomplishment for him defeating someone like Noah, because Noah's really smart. Noah would have been onto him and all that. Even though I think it would have been interesting to see that rivalry, it's still an accomplishment for him defeating Noah, and then that's 5 people he got out, right? He also got Owen, so that's 6. So he got 6 people out, right? He got 6 people, and 2 of them were on his own team. So, and also he got Tyler out, so technically it's 7. Yeah, he 7 people. And you can also say he got out Duncan, so that's 8. So he got out a lot of people, and he caused a lot of drama. And also his relationship with Heather was really enjoyable to watch, because Heather's the type of character, and Alejandro, they never admit that they like each other, but they do like each other. I think it's really cool seeing Alejandro. Like, when you're watching a character, I always think it's so cool watching villains who actually fall in love with each other. It's really interesting because for Alejandro, it's like, well, Alejandro, he's manipulative, but when you get into All Stars, I actually think he was one of 2 best characters in that season. In my opinion, I think Mal's also pretty good, but I will get to Mal eventually. And I am going to be doing how I would fix each season. But I think personally, Alejandro was a brilliant character. In All Stars, I loved him in All Stars. Him and Lightning, in my opinion, were the best 2 characters. I think for Alejandro, I think the way he got eliminated in an episode in the obstacles, a lot of people didn't like the episode. Like, a lot of people didn't like the fact he's been nominated by Mal, and that's fair enough. The way he submitted to Mal, I felt was a bit out of character for him, because he's a very talented guy. He's like very intelligent, but I do like how he tried to convince people to get out Mal, similar to how Duncan does. in the original. I do think Alejandro was just one of the best characters, and I was really sad to see him eliminated. Like, I know he made it second in his original season, and then he came sixth, and that's pretty good. Like, obviously, a finals can't win again, because in a show like that, because then it would just get really boring, and you're gonna obviously a character that's not just gonna work. I mean, in the reboot, they might be able to do that because in the reboot, there's no alternate winners, which I really like. And I think Alejandro deserves this spot because he's the best villain. I think a lot of people would agree he's in that ranking. So now we have Courtney. Now, Courtney's a bit tricky because Courtney was really well developed. Some people love her, some people hate her. I personally don't mind Courtney. Would I say she's a villain like Heather, Justin, or Alejandro? Probably not. Which is why I am not. I don't think she's an S tier character. She's either like S is like God tier, A's I really like, B is like the light category. C was they were midcore, like they were okay as a villain, but they're not the best one. D's just like they had no strategy or anything to the game. Courtney is, I don't want to say she's a bad villain, but I think I know where I would put her. I think, you know what, I'm going to put her in the B category. I know that's controversial, because Courtney was, she went out with Duncan, and then in the first season, she really, in Ireland, was probably her best season, to be honest, but in Ireland, she got her votes against Harold, which was kind of like, people say Courtney was robbed, and like, I don't think she was, and let me explain why. First of all, Courtney, yes, she was robbed in Ireland, which makes sense. She's a returning player in action. She comes third in action. She loses in World Tour to a double elimination round. In All Star, she loses fifth because she makes the chart. So let's talk about her villain arc. Not so much in Ireland, because in Ireland she didn't really have anything villainous arc. She got out of situations where she easily could have gone home. Like in episode 2, Ezekiel was out. Episode 7, where Tyler was eliminated, Courtney should have been out there. Like, there were a few episodes where Courtney could have easily gotten eliminated. Then it was more so action where I felt she kind of started to have that competitive side in the villain arc, because in the Island special we kind of saw that side of Courtney, who Duncan brought the worst out of. And you can kind of say it was Duncan's fault to an extent, because Duncan, he's the bad boy. He's kind of the trope between Courtney and Duncan, it actually works really well, because she's like the goody two shoes and Duncan's like a bad boy. And I think she got Owen eliminated, so that was a huge accomplishment because he won last season and he's very likable. She also got Justin eliminated himself, which is a shame because I think Justin was a really well written villain. She also gets Lashana eliminated, and that's really okay, so in World Tour, she has that friendship with Gwen. She wins in a loophole situation where Noah loses. Creamcrust lose because of the technicality that they found Duncan, right? So she gets Gwen eliminated, that's 4. She also technically helped with getting Owen out again, twice. And then in the Villains Alliance, it's like, well, she was technically... It's like, well, it seemed like Courtney and Gwen are made things up. I felt the All-Stars brings her down. Like, I don't think Courtney needs to be a villain. Like, as an actual character, I think she's one of the well-written character, but as a villain, I don't think she is necessarily a character who kind of need to be there. The thing is, All-Stars definitely... I felt the Duncan situation could have been handled, like the All-Stars, they could have handled that a bit better. Like, I'm not saying Duncan and Courtney need to get back together at that point. Like, but I am saying that they could have easily had Duncan redeem himself. Make things right with Courtney like Gwen does. and completely get rid of the fact that she makes the chart. And in World Tour, the kiss never needed to happen, but it was actually, I believe it was, now, I might be wrong here, but I believe it was Cartoon Network that was forcing Duncan and Gwen to be together. I don't think the writers planned that. So, as an actual character, I think Courtney is a well-written character. She is pretty good as a villain, but I wouldn't say she's on the level of like Justin or Heather or Alejandro. Like she's definitely not on levels like Scarlet even. Like there are characters on this list who I think are a lot better. She's not the worst to be a villain. Like if Courtney were to plan, like if they did a future season where Courtney came back and she was going to be the main antagonist, it could work. And she's just really competitive. But besides her island appearance, every other season she's technically lost due to either double elimination round or she's been voted off, or like everyone just didn't want her in the game. Like, that's just how it is for Courtney. So now we go on to Justin, and Justin's one of my favorite total drama villains, and one of my favorite characters. Okay, so how do I rank Justin? Okay, so Justin, he's not a D. He is going in. Do I put him in the A tier or the S tier? You know what? I'm gonna put him in the S tier. Something else. He's going in the S tier. My boy Justin. Okay. So Justin is probably going in the S tier. He's lower than Alejandro, but higher than higher than Courtney. Okay. So Justin, I forgot her name for a second there. So Justin was a very well written villain because in Ireland the writers wanted Justin to be the villain, but he got eliminated very early on. Like Justin does nothing in Ireland whatsoever. He's just kind of there. But action completely makes him completely different because Justin's aware he can use his looks, and he actually comes back a lot methodical in the way he thinks, and actually comes a lot of a smarter character. And like he's not levels like Alejandro or Heather or anything. Like I wouldn't say he's not even as villainous. Like Justin's actually a sympathetic person. So when you have a villainous character who can be sympathetic and relate to a character, I think it makes him really interesting because Justin got out Trent, right? He got out Trent. He blackmails Gwen, which is I think probably one of his best scenes, if not the best scene he does. So he gets Gwen eliminated, which she made into the finale. He also gets Beth and Lindsay on her side for like half of the season, which is kind of interesting because they originally worked with Heather, and then Justin's like using his looks and ladies. And I think he gets Izzy out as well. He just about manages to get Izzy before he loses his looks. And I thought when he lost his looks arc was really interesting because what can he do if he can't use his looks? It actually puts Justin in a very interesting situation because on the one hand, he's trying to get other people to do challenges, but on the other hand, he needs to somehow seem useful and help his team. There's also some situations where I'm like, okay, well, he tried to scream out challenges, which I don't hate, if I'm honest. Yes, it's a bit lazy, but I don't actually hate it. I think it actually really suits his character. And when I do fix these seasons, I am going to mention that in like my World Tour video. I think Eva and Justin should have been in that season. And Trent, those three, in my opinion, should have been in World Tour. Like, especially Justin, like, the way they wrote him, like, he had so much potential. Like, Justin has so much potential as a character. I would love to see him interact with Alejandro and Anne-Maria. Anne-Maria, I feel like a lot of people ship them together, right? So Anne-Maria and Justin, they kind of work. Because Anne-Maria is technically the Gen 2 version of Justin, right? So the only people that, like Justin after his ill knock is probably Katie and Sadie. That's probably it. So it would be interesting for Justin to go up against someone like Alejandro because, like, we don't see that. Now, there are a few things that they could have done, like Noah and Justin, they could have developed that rivalry because, personally, they did that in the special, and Justin was well written in that episode. But unfortunately, he just never really had the same impact as Heather or Alejandro, where they're just like, well, they're villainous, they're really smart, but they caused a lot of problems. But I think Justin's definitely one of probably top 3 best villains. In Gen 1, he's probably like second or third. Like, definitely. Like, I arguably maybe second best for me, but that's just my opinion. Sugar. Oh dear. Yeah. D tier. Like, Sugar has no strategy. She has no like connections with anyone on the island except Leonard, and he's gone in like the second episode. And Sugar technically she gets eliminated because she rats her out, but that doesn't really take much strategy. It's more like, well, at least with Mal had some strategy, even if it didn't make any sense, like getting rid of Cameron, who's his ally, which you could just argue, well, he wants to get rid of him because of which get rid of ally, but we'll get to Mal eventually. But Sugar is just, in my opinion, one of the worst villains in Total Drama. In fact, I would argue Lightning is a better villain, considering the fact that Lightning would be very competitive, and Lightning, even though Lightning probably wouldn't have any strategical strategy, Lightning's the type of character who I feel like he would be good as a henchman character. But Sugar, she's just kind of there. She gets somehow to the final 3, and I've always had an issue with that, right? So Jasmine comes 4th. Now, my favorite character. And even though Jasmine's my favorite character, being unbiased with Sugar, I felt like she could have gone where Topher went. I'm being honest, I think, even though I hate Dave as a character, I think it's definitely, a lot of you guys know I don't like Dave. I'm pretty sure Dave would have been a better character in 3rd place than Sugar. And that's a lot for me to say. Like, the fact, I wouldn't say I hate Sugar as much, but like, when you compare her to other villains like Scott, the High Dancers, even Mal, Bowie, and Julia, Sugar's only real feat was getting rid of Ella. And again, that didn't take much strategy. Like, she was bullying maybe Max a bit when she made fun of him, being close with the babies. But again, Sugar has no strategy. She didn't do anything in the game. So on this list, she's definitely the worst villain. And so she's probably the only one I can safely say that I don't like. Scarlet. Okay. I think Scarlet. To explain Sugar, the next villain is Scarlet. And I think it's obvious Scarlet is an A character. The reason Scarlet is here is I think she is one of the best characters in Backdown. She's a really good villain. I thought she was written really well. Especially for characters in that season who I didn't have many favorites. She's in my top 5. Scarlet, for me, the reason why she works so well is her dynamic with Max was pretty cool. And like Scarlet was able to figure out, Jasmine's some really useful challenges. She also figured out pretty fast that Amy was actually Amy. So when you have a villain who's really smart, like Jasmine's probably the first villainous character who's really smart. Probably one of the smartest on this list. And I think personally Scarlet's definitely up there. In my opinion, it's one of the best, like the best villain in Pac-Man. Like, I love Max as a character, and Max is my favorite of the two. But Max is kind of more, a wannabe. Scarlet kind of did it. Like, she gave Max the electric eel. She made traps with him. Like, the idea to try and get him out as quick as possible was really cool. And Scarlet's, like, cheated. Like, that's the only time she's had an advantage in the challenges. And, she also got out Topher. So that was a accomplishment for her as well. And it wasn't really as a sectional play. It was just more, well, he cost us the challenge. And she also used the remote on the island that she had, and also all that. So I think Scarlet definitely is here for that reason. She's a great villain, I think, and I haven't got a lot to say about Scarlet because she hasn't done that much, but as a character, she's definitely one of my favorites. That's why she's up here. And now we have Heather. Heather is, yeah, Heather. Do I put her in S or do I leave her in A? A S A S A S A S. You know what? I'm gonna put her above Scarlet. Some people are gonna say she should be S tier. Fair enough. For me, she's not one of my favorite characters, but I understand why Heather is your favorite. If she's your favorite character of Virgil, the reason she's A is the redemption arc. Now, I love the arc, and I will get to that. So first of all, Heather plays in every season an awesome game. Like she's really enjoyable to watch. Like in season one, you know, she had alliance with Lindsay and Beth. Noah was supposed to be in the alliance. So originally the writers wanted Noah in. I think it was instead of, I want to say it was instead of Beth, but the writers, for whatever reason, written Noah out and just got him as an early boot. Now, I think Noah is one of my favorite characters. I would love to see Noah in that alliance. But for Heather, she got Justin out, who was could have been a massive threat later on. So she knew already who would have been threats and stuff. And Noah. Like she said, Noah was really a massive threat. So Noah was just kind of easy though. Heather didn't really do anything else. So she got rid of Justin. Episode 8 is got chased down. Episode 9, Cody was mauled by a bear. So she indirectly got Cody out because of her alliance falling. She got Beth out because of the cursed statue. She got Trent out. And she possibly helped Duncan getting out Bridget. Depending on if you think Duncan... I'm sorry, not Duncan. Jeff voted for Bridget. Now, I don't know if Jeff did, if I'm honest. I'm not sure if he did. I just like the type of person he is, and he's an honest guy. I want to say he doesn't, but I just don't know how Bridget gets eliminated in that episode. So, I think there's that. And then she also gets Lindsay out, which is in her own alliance. And Lindsay loses technically to another technicality due to a loophole in the challenge where she crossed last because Duncan and Owen wiped out. And it's like, okay, well, Chris knew people were going to wipe out. You could have easily had it where whoever crossed the finish line, let's say Duncan and Owen wiped out, you could have had a vote between them. But no, that was just another way to save Heather. And all that, so another way to get out Heather there. She also was very good with Gwen to trick the guys to give them their stuff. And she also, she refused to get her hair shaved off, but she loses due to the fact that Chris never says she actually agreed to the dare. So that was really interesting. Heather comes third in the first season, right? And she loses, and I think that's really cool. It actually makes her a very sympathetic, interesting character. And then everyone hates her by the time we get to action. So everyone knows who she is, and then she's put onto the gaffers. She works with Harold in an alliance, but she doesn't really, in action, get anyone out, because it's not focused on her as a character. I mean, if it wasn't for LaShawna's apology here, Heather probably would have succeeded in actually getting LaShawna out here. Even as much as Howard liked it. I believe, anyway. So, when you factor that in, she loses right before the merge because Heather gets a lot of plot armor for some reason. When it gets into the merge, she gets a lot of immunity, which I think people would have been aware that Heather would have been a massive problem going forward. Like, she could have been in an easy Final 4 or Final 5. And then we get into World Tour. Okay. Alejandro and his relationship is one of the best relationships in the show. The redemption arc. Now, I did talk about this. I think it's actually genius the way they're written. Because when you have a character who is hated so much on the team, for the past 2 seasons, right? She's on Team Amazon. The first challenge she does, nobody listens to her. Second challenge, she has an argument. Alejandro takes out Team Victory, technically most of them. And it's not really until you get to Jamaica and that, where, everyone's trying to get her out. Episode 8, she almost gets eliminated, and would have had Chris made that an elimination round. But she's saved. In episode 13, Duncan returns, and had they lost the challenge in IC London, I believe Heather would have gotten eliminated there as well, even with Sierra obsessive side with Cody, which I kind of find weird because you think that Gwen, being good friends with Cody, would side with him to get out Sierra, even as much as she despises Heather. Then the merge. Okay, so basically, she doesn't get anyone out. She works with Gwen to get out Courtney because she's annoyed at her throwing the challenges. Because at that point, whether you like the kids or not, whether you like the shipping of Gwen and Duncan, right? I think people can't deny that the way they handled it was not the best. I think it was wrong. Definitely wrong. But Heather kind of wasn't the most hated. And I think that's the reason why it kind of worked. From a writing standpoint, because it gets Heather a chance to not get eliminated, right? So when you factor that in, and then she helps Alejandro get out Owen, she gets out Courtney and Blaney. She almost gets out Syria in episode 22, but then Syria gets eliminated in the next episode anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. And then she betrays Alejandro. Like, how cool is that? Heather betrays the one person that Alejandro probably wouldn't. You can debate whether or not he did. I personally think he would have. I think he would have in the next challenge. I don't think he was going to in that episode. Seems like Heather was going to get rid of Sierra. I'm sorry, Alejandro was going to get rid of Sierra. Like, if Sierra didn't pull up the plane, Alejandro would have got eliminated. And then we get into All-Stars. Like, Heather in R&R, eventually down, she doesn't really do anything. Like, she just tries to steal the money that was rightfully hers, which is fair enough. I mean, she lost that money because of Ezekiel. Like, it was Chris's entire fault. Like, Chris could have easily got her more money. And then in All-Stars, she finds an idol. So what happens? Okay, so Heather finds the idol. So in All-Stars, she has a bit of rivalry with Joe, which I would have liked to see. She doesn't really get anyone out. So, like, Lightning is not really a usual play. It's just he lost the challenge. Joe made sense to get out because, a lot of people, like, Gwen was in it. Joe was just very bossy. So in that situation, she had to get eliminated between Joe, Heather, and Alejandro. I think they liked Heather and Alejandro more, the writers, I think. I could be wrong on that, but Joe got eliminated third. Which is fair, because I think Joe was a good enough one and rented that anyway, so it's not so bad she got voted off there. Then she did that nice arc with Alejandro. And then the episode she gets eliminated. Now she tries to get everyone to vote for Alejandro, and I think that's genius, right? She gets everyone to vote for Alejandro. But what does Alejandro do? Not only does he steal the idol, which I didn't give him credit for that, he steals the idol and plays it on the one person that got him out, which I think is really cool. It actually makes the arc full circle. I think it's one of the few things that they did right. Like, yes, Heather shouldn't have hit her idol. Like, Alejandro could have easily snatched it from her. But the point I'm trying to get at is the way that Heather did that was just amazing. And then Alejandro and Heather was just kind of together at the end. And I do think it's kind of funny, like, once they're helping their helpers, and, like, once the money's online, they just both tried to steal the money. So I think that's interesting. So, yeah, that's really kind of it. Heather is here. She deserves a spot, but if you guys think she should be in S tier, I understand, but for me, she's not quite there. I think if it wasn't for the fact the redemption was good, I liked the redemption arc. I don't know, like, in the first, everyone's kind of a little patient for me, because when I first seen Total Drama, it was in this funny thing, the episode I watched was the Mr. Coconut one. So I already kind of only seen near the end of the series. Like, I've seen the last 5 episodes, and many years later, I watched the entire show. I'm like, wow. And Heather is just such a good character. Even if she's not one of my favorites, I'm willing to admit that she is a good villain for the way she acts, the way she does it. Even if I don't like her as much as Alejandro or Justin. So I think she has to go 8 here. So now it's Scott, who's obviously one of my favorite characters in Revenge of the Island. He's probably my favorite in Revenge, to be fair. Like Scott or Lightning, definitely those two, or Brick and Emery. Like those four are tough, right? Scott's really tricky because Scott could be an A tier or a B tier or even an S tier. Like Scott has no like Scott's not nearly as smart as Alejandro or Heather, but he does get characters like Dawn and B who are a lot more strategical probably than he is. And I think because of that, Scott definitely deserves the A tier. Like he's below Heather. Like I think people's gonna be annoyed at me if I put him above Heather. So I'm going to say he's in the middle of that tier because as an actual character, Scott gets out. So basically, Scott gets out B for his murder strategy. Like he tricked everyone. Like he says, "Oh no, sorry, Zoe." Like obviously the acting he does isn't nearly as good, but like for characters like Heather, even though Heather was faking, she did a very good job. Like B, he got Dawn eliminated. He also got Mike eliminated by blackmailing him from the entire episode. He also like I don't know how he survived Joe's episode, but he got so technically he got 3 people out, right? He got 3 people out, and you could argue he got Sam as well. The throwing challenges thing, I don't know why he did it, but I thought it was a really interesting strategy. And like he could have thrown challenges every second episode. Like, you know what I mean? Like first episode he tries, second episode he doesn't, first episode he tries. Like mix it up a bit to make it seem as not as suspicious. And then we get 2 All-Stars. So Scott creates Mal, which is why he's up here. He created a villain indirectly. Scott also has a relationship with Courtney, which is one I never would have thought of. And him and Fang, he just gets chased by Fang all the time. And then when you get to the final 4, Scott loses because Zoe chooses Mike. I mean, why would she not choose him? At the end of the day, I mean, yes, she knows it's Mal, but she obviously sees Mike still in there somewhere, which is the case. Scott wasn't nearly as villainous as he was in All Stars compared to his Revenge of the Island self. A lot of people argue that Scott was ruined in All Stars and just didn't like his character. I personally don't have a problem with him in All Stars. I think the way they developed him was really good. I thought the development with him and Courtney was really good. And his relationship is just kind of a shame that Cameron is the reason they break up. I mean, it's kind of funny. Cameron gets his relationship ruined, and yet Cameron tells Mike that about Mike's personality. Cameron's not a good guy. I don't know why people like. I don't know. That's why I don't like Cameron. It's just Cameron, dude. Anyway, now we go to the ice dancers. Okay, so the ice dancers are interesting, and a lot of people are probably not going to be happy where I put them. But that's C tier. Simply put, I found them pretty annoying. Okay, no, to be honest, I found Jose pretty annoying. Not so much Jock. I liked Jock. I thought Jock was pretty funny. At times, I thought Jock was really funny. So basically, from what I remember, they don't really have any strategy. They just wanted to win, and then they got really annoyed at people. You know, every time they came like the third, or they never got the golden medal. They had the rival with the police cadets were pretty cool. The reason I put these two together is they're racers, so that's why I rank them together. And I think, if I'm being honest, they are way better than Sugar. Like they have some strategy. Like the lava rock they were cursed with for like a good chunk of the few episodes where they easily could have just thrown it away or put it somewhere else. And they lost in a few non-elimination rounds, which they easily could have gotten eliminated. Also, they get rid of one of my favorite races, the Goths, because of Loki. They're a rabbit. And I'm like, okay, well, that was a pretty good strategy to get out of the competition. They also managed to, make try to get out. They actually cause a lot of problems cause a lot of drama. And like the Surfer Bros and the Police Cats work together to try and get out the ice dancers, and it works. They actually come third. So are they the worst villains? Absolutely not. I think Jock is the better one of the two. I think Jock is the smarter one. He's definitely the more funnier one. Like, okay, they're the type of people that are the more funnier comedic villains. Like Yamcha, for example, in Dragon Ball wasn't a serious character. I would say he's more of a comedic character when he was first introduced. Like, it wasn't really till, in my opinion, Tien, Red Ribbon actually no, Red Ribbon oh yeah, Fred. It wasn't really till Tien where things got like mega serious and like things took a turn for the best, I think, personally. But the point we're trying to get at is in R&R, Ranocchus race, it's very difficult to have a total drama tournament. I think it's a great concept for a race, but you have a lot of characters to develop, so the Ice Dancers get good development. I would have liked to seen them in like a normal season. I think Jock is more interesting of the two. I just found Jose really annoying. I think that's what puts it down. Is that she's screaming at Jock like 24/7. In my opinion, if these are your favorite pair, I'm sorry, but for me, Jock is just. If we're just ranking both, Jock could probably be in the B tier, with Jose being in the C tier. But I'm just gonna put Jock here. If I'm being honest, I think as a duo villain, because that's kind of what they were. They're definitely a C. So now we're going to Mal. Okay, a lot of people don't like Mal. I don't know why. I liked and loved the concept for Mal. Like, I love the fact he was created by Scott. And Scott, he also gets Scott eliminated. Mal has some strategy. Like, even if it's not to the same extent as Heather, Alejandro, Scarlet. Maybe, oh, does he? He might have a bit more than Scott. Okay, so where do I put Mal? Do I put him? You know what? Mal's going to be in B tier. Do I put him in the A tier or am I going to put him in? I'll put him above Courtney. No, I'm gonna put, I don't care. I'm putting him in above Courtney because I can. No, I'm actually gonna put him above Courtney. And let me explain why in a minute. Do I put him above Scarlet? That's tough. Scarlet just didn't have any strategy. That was the only downfall. Scarlet had no real, like, she didn't cause a lot of eliminations or that, but she had a good development. I'm gonna put Mal in B tier because Mal's one of my favorite villains. He's one of my favorite characters. Like, Mike's one of my favorites and Mal's one of my favorites. But I want to put him here. So for Mal, first of all, he wasn't in the first episode, so that's that. He did technically appear in episode 3 to 4, but it wasn't until episode 5 where he kind of changed for the better. So the first 3 episodes, Mal caused chaos on the team. Episode 5 is where Mike's switching from Mal to Mike, right? So he kind of freezes. So in that regard, if Mal had control a bit longer in the episode, like he trips over Cameron, so he loses his glasses. His own, well, yeah, his own teammate, which is kind of strange. I don't get that. Maybe he was trying to get Cameron Megway evacuated because he knows that Cameron would help Mike, not him. The acting wasn't his acting wasn't the best, but he for some reason he was able to trick Zoe pretty well, so I'll give him that. I guess you could say bad writing. That could be one. I guess you could say that, but Duncan knew who Mal was. Like Mal was in GV, so I think that's really interesting. It develops Duncan's backstory. I think one thing they did right was definitely give Duncan a rival that's not Harold, because when you look at Harold, it's not Harold's fault, but Harold's not really. Duncan's really like Duncan. I don't get why Duncan was mean to him. Like I get it in the his crusty underwear in that episode, but besides that, there's not really a reason for him to get him out. But Harold's basically, in my opinion, everything that Duncan is not. So he's the opposite of Duncan. Mal is basically the darker version of Duncan. I feel like he's the darker side of Mike. Like he's the most evil contestant we've had. He shows no mercy. Like Mal would have probably won, to be honest, if he, like there's so much things that Mal could have done that he just didn't get the chance to do. Like even looking at some of the things he did. So now we get onto Heather, and Mal just didn't help in that episode. So Cameron self-sacrifices, fine. Episode 7, Sierra gets out, so that's not really down to him. Then we get into the merge, right? So merge, Mal just ditches everyone. Just a menace. He's an absolute menace. He just ditches everyone. Duncan blows up the mansion. Then he goes. Cameron gets medically evacuated because of Mal. No, actually, no, he saves Gwen. But he lets Cameron fall into that hole, which I thought was pretty villainous. And then he tells Mal, Mal kind of like has his like talk with Cameron. And, he rigged the votes against Cameron, which I will say is a huge accomplishment, which is something that Alejandro, Justin, or Heather wouldn't even do. So, on that regard, he does something that not even a villain did, like Harold. Like, Harold did that. So, I have to give Mal that he did rig the votes against someone that could have been a threat. And if Duncan didn't bought the mansion, Mal would have succeeded in his plan. And he also technically beat a contestant. He technically got around a loophole in a challenge that he was going to lose. So he beat it up Scott and got into the finale because Chris likes watch people get beaten up, which it does suit Chris's character. But the reason I put him below Scarlet is Scarlet did take over the island where Mal didn't. And, in the finale, it wasn't until the final episode where Mal just kind of was defeated by Mike in his mind, which I thought was really cool, is Mike is fighting Mal, and he trapped the other personalities. So I think he's a really interesting concept, but Mal had so much potential that he could have been easily the best villain if it was like a 26 episode, and he had the right situation. I think Mal could have been a really interesting character. So now we're going to Bowie. This is the second last villain. Okay. Bowie is a really interesting one. You know what? We'll give Bowie the benefit of the doubt. Let's put Bowie above Mal. Alright, so Bowie is going to... put him above Scarlet. Let's put him above Scarlet. Do I put him above Scott, though? Do I put him above Scott? He's definitely not above Heather. I'm going to leave Bowie there. Alright. So Bowie. Here's what I have to say about Bowie. Bowie is one of my favorites. He's absolutely a brilliant villain. But the problem is, he was only the main villain in season 1. He wasn't really... It was between him and Julia. He was never really, in my opinion, the main villain. He was kind of like a secondary villain, right? So Bowie got Caleb eliminated, which is fair enough, because like Heather, Caleb knew he was a threat very early on. I'm not Caleb, Bowie. He didn't affect Axel, Michelle. Like, Caleb's he only gets rid of Caleb. Like, he doesn't affect anyone else. MK got eliminated because of Julia, and then in the merge, right? So in the merge, he works with Julia, and then, Bowie's just like smirked, like he's a legend. So Bowie is there, and his relationship with Raj is like a really good way in his alliance with Emma, and one of the best parts of that season. And the thing is, even though he's villainous, Bowie has a very caring and has a heart. Like where most villains like Alejandro or Heather or even Scott just you wouldn't see them in their original season like that. Whereas Bowie was like that from the start because, Raj was afraid to tell Wayne about how he was, that he liked, that he was gay basically. Which for that character and Bowie helped Raj through that. So that's not really a villainous thing, but as a character trait and as a character arc, I think it was really well written how he did that. Now, once the Hockey Bros eliminated, Bowie was kind of a bit more devious because they weren't there to hold him back. And it's not a bad thing. Like, I'm not blaming them for Bowie the way he acted, but he threw the challenge in episode 10 with Chase to get Julia's phone. Like, he found out Julia was lying and devious very early on, so he knew that. He also threw the challenge to get out Julia, who's a bigger threat. Now, this is a situation where Bowie was in kind of a tricky situation because on the one hand, Priya and Millie would have been a bigger threat going forward. The two are massive threats as friendship, and Julia would might. On the other hand, Julia's really smart, and she's like him. So for Bowie to throw the challenge is a massive risk because he easily got eliminated in that episode. And it wasn't until the finale where Bowie kind of worked with Priya to get out Millie because he broke up their friendship for a while, right? So he managed to do that. And then Bowie technically he worked with Priya, so he chose Priya to take to the end because I'm not sure why, because Millie would have been a less physical threat. I guess her intellect, Bowie perhaps thought Priya would have been an easier opponent to face between the two. And obviously Bowie just threw up because he was very awful in the vomit comment, so he wasn't able to win the finale. Now, I would have loved it if he won the season, but I was okay with Priya winning. So Bowie ends up coming second place in that season. And then we get to season 2. Now, season 2 gets completely different because he's completely hated on the team. And he lost his friendship with Emma, right? So Chase is now on his team. Scary Girl wasn't really, it didn't take much to get her out. Chase got distracted, and then Bowie helped, MK and Julia cheat. Now, Bowie wasn't fully okay with cheating, but he was willing to cheat to get further into the game. Like in my randomized cast series, I actually ripped Bowie very well in the first season. So, his friendship with Aiden and James, which I thought I did very well. And eventually they kind of made up in the end, so I thought I really liked that part. So for Bowie, back to my theory, but Bowie basically, when you have that character, it's like, okay, well, he, MK is helping him cheat, and then, in the first merge challenge, he loses to Damien, and I thought that was really well done. Bowie just didn't have any strategy, in my opinion. Julie and MK did more of the work, right? The only thing he kind of did was try to stop them, and then they still won the challenge. In the second season, Bowie didn't have as much strategy as he did in the first season, but I definitely would say he has a lot of strategy. Bowie has a lot of potential to come back and very devious, unlike season 3 when they do it. So Bowie is in the A tier. Finally, there's Julia, and this might be a debatable one, but no, she's not a D tier. No, she is an S tier character. She's one of my favorite characters. I love Julia in the reboot. Do I put her above Alejandro? No. Justin. I put her as second. Now, a lot of people are going to argue with me that Julia is a second above Heather. A lot of people wouldn't do that. I know, but let me explain why I did this. Okay. So, I think as far as a villain, Julia doesn't affect the first 5 episodes, right? So she doesn't affect Caleb getting eliminated. She kind of maybe helped, but that was strategy from Bowie's part. She doesn't get. So she has Caleb out. Caleb's out. Axel, Michelle, Damien, Scarlet, right? So in episode 6 in Numbskulls, she almost gets eliminated, but then exposes MK. So that took a lot of strategy because she listened. She actually realized, MK was right, and her followers, she was worth the thing with her phone. That was part of her character, so I thought that was really cool. And then in the merge, she doesn't win, but she tries to get everyone to try and chase. And then I think she manages to get Matt Ripper in a challenge, and she also gets Z. She eliminates Z in a challenge. That's pretty impressive. So she does that. I feel like she's more of a common version of Heather now. I feel like she would definitely. She's definitely not a Heather. She's not a Heather. She's good enough. She's devious, and she's mostly reasonable. So she does that, and then she works with Priya and Millie in an alliance, even though they're friends. to try and get Bowie's alliance out, and then they end up turning on Z because he wants to win both alliances. So then Julia gets Final Four. Bowie throws the challenge, and she loses that. So she does try her best in that challenge, but Bowie slows her down. So she makes Bowie stuck to like a web, which I thought was pretty funny. And then you get to season 2, where her friendship arc with MK is one of the best friendships in total. Like, I would say it's the best thing in the second season. In the entire second season, it's definitely the best, right? So Julia does that, right? So she does that, and she helps. She's with MK cheating, so she's technically with MK when she cheats, and this time she works with MK in an alliance to get further to the game. Then she also gets Nichelle to quit, which is really impressive because she got Nichelle out twice. Not once, twice. The first time, we didn't much strategy because Nichelle wasn't good in the challenge, but the second time, she gets Nichelle to quit in a movie contract that she made up. And she also tries to stop Bowie from, not letting them cheat. She beats Wayne, and she gets pretty far, but still loses in that challenge. She works with Caleb in an alliance, which is interesting. And eventually, she steals Damien's idol. Now, I thought that was unfair for him, but looking from Julia's perspective, it's really impressive for her to steal an idol from someone who's really smart like that and actually knows what she's doing. So the fact she stole his idol was really impressive, and I thought the way they took out Damien was yes, it was unfair, it was uncalled for. Damien should have been Final 3 in that season, but I think Julia, the way she handled that and the way she did that was really impressive. Whether or not you like that scene or not, I thought it was really well done. And when you talk about that, she also uses the idol to get out Priya. So again, Priya probably would have been in Final 3 had Julia not had the idol. She would have been her, Caleb, and it was Wayne, right? So they were in the Final 3. So when you have that factored in, it's okay, well, surely Priya wouldn't have won a second season. The writers probably would have done it where, okay, Caleb probably wins, or Julia wins. I feel like it would have been Caleb in that situation, because Priya's already won one season, so they can't really have her win again. And then Julia loses, but she also gets a mullet, which is pretty interesting. I mean, she kind of is devastated, which is understandable. And her only helper is MK. That's how bad it is. Nobody will support her. A lot of people, you could argue that she might get a Heather arc. I hope that's not the case, because we already had that. And a lot of people, I think I agree with this, but people, I think her in the aftermath, something like that, would be interesting to see her do something like that. And, people kind of ship MK and Julia together. That could work. So if they're going down that road, I think that Julia and MK could definitely be a thing. But yeah, that's where I kind of put Julia. So she's the second best villain in my opinion. She's not on the levels of Justin. She's above Justin a lot, but the reason why is just because her and MK just worked so well together. It wasn't it was like Noah and Owen, right? If Noah and Owen were both villainous characters, they would actually kind of work very well, because Owen's very likable, and Noah's kind of the smarts, and Owen's kind of the muscle. So that's kind of what it was in that situation. Granted, MK gets eliminated by her twice, which is also really impressive. And Julia, they're willing to betray each other, which is something a lot of people probably wouldn't do on this list. Okay, Jack and Jose wouldn't betray each other. For example, they probably wouldn't betray each other. Bowie wouldn't betray Raj. Scarlet would, but would she? Scarlet? It's a bit hard to say. Scott probably wouldn't after Courtney. There's some characters here I can say that wouldn't, and some would. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. This is my list of the villains. So from start to finish, first Alejandro, second Julia, third Justin, fourth Heather, fifth Scott, sixth Bowie, seventh Scarlet, eighth Mal, ninth Courtney, 10th slash 11th. 10 is the Ice Dancers, and 11th is Sugar. So yeah, I hope you really like this one, and comment, like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what other suggestions you would have had in this video. Like, did you agree with my list? If not, like, let me know why. Was there anyone I was missing? Like, I didn't make this list myself. Was there anyone I was missing to be ranked? The only character maybe was Max, but yeah. Peace for all.